Okay, hey everyone, so this is going to be the first of a recurring series on my channel where I directly address your issues, questions, needs, whatever you guys want. And I want to make sure that this series stands apart from all the other videos I make. So as you can see, there's going to be gameplay, and also these are going to be unscripted. So I'm just going to give my candid thoughts to whatever you guys ask me about. And I forgot to mention this in my original post, but I'm not going to include any names. I want to keep everything private, and I don't want you to feel uncomfortable for sharing something you need. So I'm going to keep all the names private. And also, finally, sorry if I don't get to your question. I'm definitely going to make more of these. So if I don't get to you now, I will get to your question eventually. So the first one I want to cover is probably what I saw most often. Several people asked about motivation issues. And I'm going to use school as an example because I'm sure most of you who do struggle with motivation, it's in some connection to school. So if you're doing homework at night, you're not thinking about what that homework will do for you in 5 years. It's kind of hard. You don't really think about that on the day to day. But that's what you need to do if you struggle with motivating yourself. You need to think about, okay, if I do this homework, what will this do for me at the end of the semester? In 2 years, in 5 years, it will help me get to where I want to be. Succeeding in the homework will give you better grades. Better grades will help you get into college, and getting into college will help you get a good career. However, you might also realize that you don't enjoy school. There comes a point where if you really don't like something, you have to accept that you can't motivate yourself to do it. And again, since we're talking about school, you might realize that school isn't for you. Right? If you really can't motivate yourself, if you try everything, right? You think long term, you think about future success, and it's still hard, school might just not be for you. Think about what else you can do beyond high school. You still need to do high school. You still have to graduate. But look for other things. Look for other paths in college because there are many. But to go back to the main advice is to just realize the long term, right? If you're struggling in the short term, think about the long term. Don't get stuck on the future too much, but think about what this will do for you, and maybe that will help. This next one I found really interesting when I saw it, and it was talking about plateauing in your self-improvement journey. And what do you do when you don't see as much change, even though you're trying just as much and putting in just as much effort? And I think we need to remember what self-improvement actually is. It's a goal of living a healthy lifestyle. Let's also think about where you start. Right? Most of us, if we're trying to improve our lives, not that our lives are terrible at the beginning, but we're at some kind of low point. We feel like we can improve, and which is why we start self-improvement. So let's say you do self-improvement for a year. You work hard, you get good sleep, you develop a good diet, work out, think positively, journal, all that stuff. You're going to see a lot of change in that year from where you had none of it to the point where it's become second nature. It's part of your lifestyle. The thing is though, if you do that again for another year, the change isn't going to be as big. You might still improve, but you're not going to see that level of change. But the thing is, you can't expect that kind of level every single year if we're, thinking about years. Especially if you're young too, you only can go so far with self-improvement. You can't be at your peak at 20 years old. That's just not going to happen. You might have just kind of arrived at your healthy state of existence. Like, this is the best place you can be in right now, and that's okay. You kind of just have to enjoy it. Like, it's I wouldn't say get complacent, but it's your time to just enjoy living a healthy lifestyle. So the next question we have is struggling with a negative outlook on life and just viewing the world from a pessimistic perspective. So 2 things with this. First, I think you need to look inward because, and this is something I strongly agree with, how you look at the world is a projection of your self-worth and how much you value yourself. So if you view the world as terrible, I think it might be because you don't think of yourself as valuable. I'm not saying that it's a certainty, but I definitely recommend to think about that. And the other thing is that you're in a bubble. Especially when we're young, we don't travel, we don't see other areas of the world, even other areas of our state or country. We don't know what it's like. So it's really not right to generalize the entire world based on one town or, your street. If that bubble is bad, then you're going to expect that the rest of the world is. But that's not true. You can't generalize the entire world based on one area. It's just not right. So that's my advice there. I would look inward, think about how you view yourself, but also realize that you're in a bubble and maybe you need to get out of that bubble when you're older, and that might actually help your view of the world. So the next one we have here is very important. It's about overcoming a breakup even after you do everything right. So what do you do when, you've gotten rid of everything, all the triggers, all the easy ways to think about that person, but they still remain? Now, first, I want to say that this is extremely hard. Okay, there's really no other way to say it. It's a hard thing to overcome. And also, I don't have any personal experience because I've never been in a relationship. So I can't give the absolute best advice, but I think I still have a couple things to say. The main thing to keep in mind is that, first of all, you're young. So this has probably been your first or your most important relationship. So all these memories are not only vivid, but they're emotionally charged. You were extremely close to this person. And again, you have no other, past memories to think about of other relationships. It's just this one. So that emotion and past dependency on this relationship, again, not a bad thing, but it's the truth, that strengthens the memories. And as you said, you've done everything right, but the thing is, these memories, they can come in at random, completely out of your control. But the thing is that I think it's just a time thing. Over time, these memories will lose that little bit of emotion that's attached to them, and I think it will make it easier. But I also think there is something you could do right now. So I would do this. Write some counter thoughts to think about when this comes up in your head. So when you think about this person, say, oh, well, I'm going to have another relationship, or, oh, this person wasn't for me. And just keep repeating that to yourself over and over and over again. And I think that could really help with avoiding any negative periods following that thought if you have it. Okay, so next we have another point of relationships, which is trust issues. Again, I've never been in a relationship, so I can't really speak too personally on this, but here's what I have to say. So whenever you have some kind of connection to someone and they have a problem, there is a limit to what you can do to fix it. Okay, they are the only person who can really fix that problem. And I'm not saying it's their fault for having trust issues, it's just that it has to be them. But also remember, it's not your fault. The fact that you even asked a question means you care, which is more than enough. It's not your fault that this person has trust issues, and it's not your fault that they are still struggling with it. I would also add too that you want to make sure they actually want to fix it. So that's an important thing. Now, something you might also want to consider is that, unfortunately, because again, I'm assuming you're young, this person might not be ready for a relationship, right? If they haven't gotten over this, that's not their fault. But again, they're young, so they might not just be mature enough, and that's okay. So I'm not saying you need to break up with this person, but I would say that this could be a possibility. They are just not mature enough yet to be in a relationship. So I'm gonna just interject right here, and I realize that I've been talking for quite a bit, so I'm probably gonna split this whole thing into two parts. Again, sorry if I didn't get your question, but trust me, I will, just in a future video. But the final one I wanna talk about is transitioning into a new stage of life and advice on that. This is something that's really important to me because that's exactly what's happening in my life. So I'm going to college in a month and my whole world is gonna change. I've basically been living in my room for the past year and a half. I'm gonna be living with people I've never met. My whole routine is gonna change, and I'm nervous about that. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to that opportunity to change. So I would say that's the best mindset to have when going into a new part of your life, is to just kind of accept that you're gonna be uncomfortable, but at the same time, you're gonna change more than you would if you just kind of kept on the same path. So that's the advice I would give. So I think that's gonna do it for this part. Again, I will address your questions, but they will just be in a future video. Let me know if you like this different style of video. And as always, this has been Dark Horse, and I will see you in the next video. When I shoot my shot, it's the whole wild ways going in. Me and little sicko sitting sideways, breaking tins.